Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Martin. I'm from EIT Digital, and this is a very interesting event because we have both a physical audience, which the online watchers can't really see at the moment, and we have the online audience. So we're going to do our very best to try to bring all of this together. For my script, this is the EIT Digital Strategic Venture Workshop, and we're live from Glasgow. I myself, I'm an ecosystem lead here in Scotland. We have 23 offices across Europe, which Morgan's going to cover in a bit, but one of our offices are here in Scotland. And over the next 90 minutes or so, you're going to hear from 4 different speakers with insights and information regarding the support that EIT Digital provides for early stage and scale up and deep tech organizations. The event itself is for the online watchers. I'm sure the physical watchers know exactly where we are, but we're at Barclays Eagle Labs in the beating heart of Glasgow, right in the centre of Glasgow in Scotland. And as I said, because it's a hybrid event, it's a little bit more complicated than normal. But we've got some fallbacks if the technology doesn't work, so I think it should be fine wherever you are. It's also a fabulous opportunity, I think, to really showcase and open a window to Scotland, to the rest of Europe. Scotland is and always was open for business, and we have over 600 registered who are still joining, I think, for this event. So it's a really good opportunity, I think, for Scotland to showcase what we can do to the rest of Europe, and hopefully Europe can see what we do. And to that end, I've got a couple of examples that I've really picked from Scotland when I'm doing my proper presentation later on. But any success that we're talking about in Scotland is duplicated across Europe, so don't worry wherever you are. In terms of the agenda, if we can move to the agenda. Thank you very much. We've got the event's going to be split into 4 topic areas. The first person you're going to hear from is Morgan Gillis, who's our Regional Director for West Region. And he's going to talk a little bit about who EIT Digital is and why you should partner with us, along with some additional information regarding EU projects we're involved in, which I think will bring even more opportunities both to Scotland and to the rest of organisations across Europe. After that, we've got Patricia McClay from Barclays Eagle Labs. And I wanted to say we're very grateful to Barclays Eagle Labs for hosting us here today. Patricia's going to tell you a bit more about Eagle Labs and exactly why organisations in the UK should partner with Eagle Labs. But she's also got a bit of information which will be useful for European organisations as well. And then you're going to hear from me again, and I'm going to talk about the Open Innovation Factory, which is one of our flagship ventures for early stage companies. You might have heard a little bit about it in previous presentations. It does happen twice a year, and it changes from year to year, or from call to call. So I do recommend that you pay attention, because some of the criteria will have changed from one time to the next. And then finally, you're going to hear from I'm going to call you our resident investment expert, Ben McClure. And so if you're a company that's in the process of perhaps raising Series A investment or will be doing so in the short to middle term, then it's a really useful presentation for you to listen to. And then we're going to wrap everything up with a Q&A session. If we could move to the next slide, please. In order to kind of streamline this and make it fair for both the physical and the online attendees, we're going to use Mentimeter. So if you want to take a second and take a picture of that QR code, it'll mean that you can ask any questions as they come to you throughout the presentations. You can also upvote any questions that you agree with, and we'll try to tackle these ones first. And we will do this all in maybe around about half-hour session at the end, where you'll hear from us answering the questions directly. So as I say, please feel free to answer any questions anytime you like. We will show this QR code again at other points throughout the event. So if you have first time or you lose it, you can find it later on. And then finally, I want to just pass to Morgan, who is, I think, next on the agenda, just to give an overview of EIT Digital. Thank you, Morgan.
Thanks, Martin. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Morgan Gillis. I'm Regional Director for Western Europe for EIT Digital. Sorry, I have to go over here. As Martin said, we're talking to you physically in the Eagle Labs building here in Glasgow on a beautiful late summer afternoon. and we have a large audience from across Europe as well. We wanted to do it this way as a hybrid event to mark the occasion of the UK associating to Horizon Europe formally at the beginning of the summer. And that's very important because that means that all of the funding opportunities that we're going to talk to you about this afternoon are fully open to UK participants now. And it is also extremely straightforward for UK innovators to collaborate with European counterparts and vice versa. So that's why we're doing it in this slightly unusual way. My job at the beginning is just to give you a snapshot of who we are as an organization, where we came from and what we do at a high level. And then we're going to talk to you about two specific programs, which are centerpiece programs for us. One is Open Innovation Factory, which is the one that directs funding into startup organizations. So primarily we're talking about seed level funding for startups. So Martin Beaton will give you a deep dive on that program. And then Ben McClure will talk to you about our Access to Finance program. And this is venture capital funding, which is directed towards organizations which are scaling, usually scaling internationally across Europe and sometimes beyond Europe as well. So who are we? We're EIT Digital, which means that we sit under a main EU funding organization called the EIT. Would you have the next slide, please, Tessa? Here it is. Okay, so we're what's known as an EIT Knowledge and Innovation Community, or KIC for short. And today there are 8 KICs altogether within the EIT family. And the role of each KIC is to focus very closely on sectors which are of strategic importance right across Europe and into the associated countries, which includes the UK now. So each KIC focuses on a specific sector, and the role of the KIC is to deploy funding and support and added value services in order to strengthen and accelerate the development of that sector right across Europe. And you have to think about this on a global level, because what the EU is really trying to do here is to develop a very strong competitive position against the other major global regions, which are obviously also involved heavily in deep tech innovation. So primarily we're talking about the North America here, plus China, plus India. And structurally, Europe is different because Europe is a federation, or something close to a federation of countries, which means that a lot of the innovation still happens within country-specific silos. And therefore, we run programs which go across those country-specific silos in order to aggregate innovation and to elevate the competitiveness of the EU as a whole. We were one of the first wave KICs. So there were 3 first wave KICs, which were all launched quite a long time ago now in 2020. We obviously focus on the digital sector. We've been doing that for almost 15 years now. The other 2 first wave KICs are Climate KIC, which focuses on the green sector, and InnoEnergy, which is the energy KIC, which obviously focuses on the energy sector. And then through the subsequent years, the additional KICs have been added in. This map is our geographic footprint across Europe. So we have a very good network of offices, as you can see. We're in all of the major European cities. The headquarters office is in Brussels, as you would probably expect. And then over to the right, there are 2 very important offices, which are not in the EU, but are outside of the EU, and they exist for strategic reasons. So the first office is the one here in Scotland. We've had an office in Scotland for more than 5 years now. It was launched in April five years ago. We have a very close relationship with Scottish Enterprise and with the Scottish government. And our relationship with Scotland has been extremely productive across that 5-year period. And we expect the collaboration to intensify now that the doors are open and that Scottish participants are eligible for all of the programs. And then the other office outside of the EU is in Silicon Valley. So here we have a team, and the purpose of that office is to bring together very close collaboration between the EU and the large North American marketplace. Sometimes that means facilitated access to the North American market for EU scale-ups usually, and also access to technology and skills, which may be only available in North America and not so easy to find in Europe. So it's a very well developed system, it's a mature system, and it's there to support you, whether you're a startup just getting early market traction, or whether you're a scale up, which already has a strong footprint perhaps in your domestic market, and you're ready to expand internationally very, very quickly. So that's our physical infrastructure. Let me just talk to you a little more about how the innovation system works. If we can move to the next slide, this is the mission that we have. So just to add a little more detail here, for the first 12 years of our existence, we just focused on the EIT funding stream. So it's a very large funding stream, and we were very successful as an added value intermediary between that large fund and innovation actors of all kinds across Europe. And then from 3 years ago, we began to broaden our footprint. So we moved outside of the EIT funding stream and into other main innovation funds within the Horizon Europe funding framework. And more recently, we've gone across out of Horizon Europe and into the Digital Europe funding framework as well. So today, our footprint is really defined by the new European innovation agenda. This is the very broad innovation agenda for Europe. And we pick the very best innovation funds from within the frameworks within that agenda. And we secure funding from those fund managers, and we push it down as cascade funding to the most suitable innovation actors. So our mission today, excuse me, is to be the preeminent added value delivery platform for the best innovation and education funds, which drive the new European innovation agenda right across Europe and now into the UK as well. We're not talking too much about education in this event this afternoon, but this is also a very big piece of machinery which sits behind what we do on innovation. We have strategic relationships with more than 50 leading universities across Europe, and here we're funding higher education programs which are delivering the very best graduates into the marketplace, sometimes to start their own companies and sometimes to go into established companies to accelerate growth. So that's the mission. If we take the next slide, please. This is a sort of a mechanical view of the innovation model. So essentially, as I said, we go upstream to secure funding from the very best and the largest innovation funds within Europe. So within Horizon Europe and also within Digital Europe. So we're taking primary funding and we're pulling it down into our own organization. And here we combine it with added value services and capabilities. And then we package everything together and we push it downstream as cascade funding into the very best and the most promising innovation actors. Here we're working very broadly. We have relationships with about 35,000 innovation actors in every corner and pocket of Europe. So we enable and we empower those organizations to then accelerate their development and to put the very best products and services into the marketplace, normally in the EU to begin with, but then as you'll hear from Ben, as they're growing and accelerating and expanding, we also support market growth into global marketplaces. And all of that then drives the strategic markers and the economic impacts, which are so vital at a strategic level for the EU and also for the UK, of course. So that works as a virtuous circle. As the impacts and the market markers are laid down, that provides the validation for the main innovation funds, and they get replenished, and so the cycle goes round and round and round. And our role is to work very furiously hard at the center of this, to take the funding, to combine it with the added value services and programs, push it down, and to make the early stage companies successful and great products to come into the marketplace. So that's how the machinery works. This next slide is just a little bit of a drill down on the relationships.
Sorry, everyone. We'll restore the sound shortly.
Accelerators and all the other kinds of ecosystem organizations. As you'll hear from Ben, about 3,000 relationships with VC firms in all of the major centers of funding across Europe, including London, of course. 500 universities altogether, of which we have strategic relationships with 50, and about 300, a little more than 300 government organisations, including the Scottish government. So it's a very rich ecosystem. We have great direct access to every aspect of it, and that enables us to find and to mobilise the very best innovation actors to get a particular job done on behalf of the primary innovation funds, which sit at the top of the value chain. Next slide, please. This just maps what we do onto the new European Innovation Agenda. If you're familiar with the agenda, you'll know that at the top level, it's demarked into 5 flagships. So we are primarily active in flagships 1 and 3 and 4. So within flagship 1, we're delivering the funding for deep tech scale-ups. Within flagship 3, we're building and we're strengthening pan-European ecosystems. And flagship 4 is the one which is concerned with developing deep tech talent through the higher education programs that we operate. So we're very active right across the new European Innovation Agenda, and that means that we're playing a strategic role on behalf of the EU. Next slide, please. Within that very large network, as I said, we also have formal structured relationships with more than 350 formal partners. And so in Scotland, that includes Scottish Enterprise, as I said, where we've had a structured relationship for more than 5 years. And then it's many of the major corporations across Europe, the universities, which I mentioned, and other organizations which are very strategically aligned with what we're doing. Next slide, please. This is a graph which shows the added value programs which we offer and which we combine with the funding. The rationale here is that you can only get so much done with money alone. If you're an early stage company, you probably will benefit from added value support, expertise and services and so on in order to accelerate your aims and objectives. So I won't go into every element of this, but you can see that the graph scales from students, the ones going through the higher education programs on the left side, all the way up to the very powerful scale-ups and right the way up to unicorn level. The two that we're going to talk to you about this afternoon are core services for us. So this is Open Innovation Factory, which Martin will talk about. He'll give you all the ins and outs of that. And then Ben will do the same with access to finance. So really this afternoon, we're talking about those two core programs. Thanks, Tessa. Yeah, and this is just then to position those two programs for you a little more precisely. This is the classic S-curve for venture growth, which I think we're all familiar with. So Open Innovation Factory, this is really directed at startups. It's seed level funding, really. So the quantum of funding is up to 400,000 euros. It's delivered very intensively across a 6-month activity period. So what we're doing here is to find the very, very best companies at this stage of development and to support them very closely with a good tranche of funding and very closely targeted services and support. And then, as you can see, it works as a funding ladder. So that then feeds up into the Access to Finance program. Here we're leveraging our relationships with the venture capital firms right across Europe. And here it's private investment going in at late seed and Series A and Series B level. And Ben will explain exactly how that works. Next slide, please. Some headline metrics. I'll go very quickly across this. So on the right-hand side, through the Open Innovation Factory, we have supported 243, I think it's more than 250 now, early stage companies, and they're part of our portfolio today. So it's a very good number right across Europe. Through the Access to Finance program, we have facilitated the deployment of more than 1.3 billion euros of private capital going into scale-up companies. Over on the left side, more than 3,000 very talented and capable students have graduated through our higher education programs. And then in the middle, this is the new part of our business model, which I mentioned. This is the non-EIT funding, which we've started to branch into from 3 years ago. And so far, we have secured about €250 million of additional innovation funding through these other funds within Horizon Europe and within Digital Europe. So that's all on the shelf now, and we're pushing it down as cascade funding to the very best startups and scale-ups. So those are the metrics. This is a map. It's a little bit old now. This is a snapshot as at the beginning of the summer. So this was June. These were all of the projects that we were supporting and funding across Europe as of that time. The interesting thing about this is that the red dots are innovation actors who are located in what Europe calls strong and leader innovation geographies. You can see a couple in Scotland. Scotland's classed as a strong innovator. And then all of the blue ones, which are more towards the left side, these are emerging and moderate innovators. So we have gathered all of these together. There's more than 100 of them. They're collaborating with each other. We're providing the coordination and the support and the funding. And the reason that this is so important is not so much because there's a lot of dots on the map. The important thing is that the blue ones are now working with the red ones inside the same projects. And where they were working within silos before, they're now collaborating on highly important, highly value-adding projects. So what we're actually doing, and this is why it matters so much to the EU, is that we're reducing or even removing this big innovation divide. So we're dealing with this big structural problem of advanced innovation in some geographies and rather slow innovation in other geographies. So we're pushing them together to solve that problem. And of course, at the same time, we're aggregating the technologies and the capabilities. So that's intensifying innovation within the overall European geography. So that's why it's important. That's why this is extremely helpful in respect of the structural challenges that Europe has with fragmented innovation. So we're starting to make big inroads to solve that challenge. So I think that's more or less it from me. There might be one more slide. Yeah, this is just a quick summary of what we're doing then at EU level and also at UK level. Through the education programs, we're delivering the deep tech talent. As I just said, we're removing the innovation divide by joining the emerging ones with the strong and the leader ones, and we're consolidating and accelerating European innovation. So that's a snapshot at a high level. And what I hope I've managed to do is to just give you a good sense of what we do and to give you a good positive feeling that we're a very good partner to work with, whether you're leading or you're heavily involved in a startup or a scale-up. We've got access to almost everything that you need. We like nothing better than working with startups and scale-ups that we haven't met before. That's really the raison d'etre and the mission that we have on behalf of Europe. So we'll come back in a couple of minutes. We'll go into the Innovation Factory in a bit more detail, and then we'll talk about growth services and access to finance as well. And before we do that, we'll just also provide you with an overview of Barclays Eagle Labs, who are hosting the event here in Scotland. And Patricia will give you a bit more information about Barclays Eagle Labs. Hi, Patricia. You're welcome.
Okay, so welcome everyone to our Glasgow Eagle Lab, my little home. For those of you who do not know, Barclays Eagle Lab is on a mission to support the UK's entrepreneurial system, supporting startups and scale-ups, primarily with basically businesses who are being innovative and mostly on from a tech point of view as well. How do we do that? If you want to go to the next slide. So how are we doing that? We're doing it virtually through events like this where we can live stream. We've got podcasts, we've got thought learning and reports, but also we've got programs, mentoring, experts within our community. And within our network, we have businesses, mentors, partners, corporates, banking expertise, investors, EIT. You know, there's a wide range of support there and experts for yourselves. Next slide. I'll just explain, actually, I'm sort of whizzing through these slides, but this is a PDF which will be shared with you all. It's interactive. So if there's a key area within one of the slides that you think, oh, I'd like to get more information on that, you can actually click on the button and it'll take you direct to our website. So you'll be able to get more information, or you can ask me direct, that's no problem as well. Okay, so the reason we've got this one up, we were awarded a 12 million grant from the UK government because there was a tender and we won it by what we're already doing. They says they wanted to escalate that and do more of the same, do more programs, more mentoring, reach more startup and scale ups to make that difference and secure the UK's status as a global science and technology superpower. So we're working with you to make that happen. Next slide. So it's quite a lot in this slide, but again, it's interactive, which you'll get after. But what I want to do is bring some of the points alive for you to think, what's Eagle Labs really all about? You know, what's in it for me? So dedicated programs. We run numerous programs for startups and scale-ups. Could be from funding readiness program is to help how to access grants in the UK, or it could and get investor ready. Other ones, we've got a Global Connect. If you're thinking, how am I going to be able to raise money in Silicon Valley and out that way? I was lucky enough to take some founders back a few years back to San Francisco and actually be there in person. Since COVID, we now do that virtually, but it's real learning on how to get that and be able to get those connections. Other ones, we saw gaps in the market, so we've created a Black Founders Accelerator, which is for Black founders who are at idea stage, and we've also got a growth one when they're further on in that journey, and that is in partnership with Foundervine. So if we stick to more of the programs we've got here, we also, from a climate point of view, we partner with Carbon 13. One of the things for ourselves, you know, we don't claim we know all the answers and we've got all the expertise in-house, we definitely don't. So we very much partner with experts around not just the UK, but further out afield as well. So Carbon 13 is for our climate. We're also partners with Sustainability Ventures for the Funding Readiness Programme that I mentioned already. That's in partnership with Capital Enterprise. And if we go on to the next one, not the next slide, but just down the next one down, industry specialisms. So we particularly try and focus on some areas. So we've got AI and emerging technology. We've got cyber and fintech. We've also got climate and nature innovation, games and creatives, and health and life sciences. So there's a real mixture of they're the sort of key areas of industry that we're focusing in and bringing our expertise that we know so that they can meet and meet with the startups and the scale-ups. The investor tech connectivity. We've done this through, originally we did this through events to try and bring investors in, bring the startups, the scale-ups, bring them all together in one room. And we still do that, but very much there's a wide community across the UK and beyond. And so we've now created a platform called the Demo Directory, where investors can go onto the platform and register, but also startups and scale-ups who are looking for investment can put their pitch on, and it's a way to network and for the investors to go, oh, like I want maybe an interest in climate nature types businesses, and they can filter through. And so that's investor connectivity part. The events and workshop like this one, but we've also got ones, for instance, I've got one coming up in here in a few weeks' time, and it's the guests will be corporate businesses, but we've actually got 11 startups who are going to be here standing where I am, sharing their knowledge of what they're working on. So they all get like 5 minutes to talk about what they're working on, and then outside they will have a stand where they're able to showcase, you know, their technology. To, you know, the reason for that is to create that opportunity for to open doors where they can inspire and educate the corporates of what they're working on with sustainability. We're doing another one down south in Marine. So there's always lots of things going on in Eagle Labs. So one of our other areas that I've mentioned here in the slide is mentoring. So mentoring, we have a vast range of mentors that we work with. And they come from various businesses. So the businesses we use are Carbon 13, Cambridge Judge Business School, which is part of Cambridge University, Codebase, Panache Ventures, and Capital Enterprise. And what we're doing with them is we book in appointments. So any one of you are welcome to get mentor sessions. And the only caveat for those ones is it's a UK business. And what happens there is you'll get an hour to talk to an expert of your choice, because the bios are all on the system on our website, that you can see the company. You might think, all right, I need help to get investment. You can see which of our mentors are experts in that area and can give, or it might be product validation, product market fit, for instance. You can narrow it down or ask myself for guidance on who to choose, because sometimes, again, some people are like, oh, there's too many, I don't know who to choose. That's okay as well. We're here to give advice and support. Another area, which is all of you across Europe that are online as well, there's learning and insight section within our website. There is thought leadership reports. There is an academy where you can do online learning, and it's little bite-sized chunks, because we appreciate startups and founding teams who are running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. They maybe only have bite-sized time, so it might be I've got 5 minutes because I'm waiting to join a call, or I might have half an hour. So and we tell you how long it takes roughly. So you again, it's trying to help you upskill and learn. And again, as I say, that's online. We've also got our podcast as well that we have now. So if you move on to the next slide, thanks. There we go. So if I broke down some of the stuff we said is from the startup point of view, we've got lab locations. We've got 34 labs across the UK, and we've got some virtual sites as well, where we don't actually have a building, but we have staff working in that area that you can still get face-to-face contact. The events, we've always got events in each of those physical sites, but we have pop-up areas as well, like Dundee, for instance, and there's some down across England as well. So, and I know we've got somebody from Belfast here as well, or from Northern Ireland anyway, but she knows the Belfast lab. So very much, you know, this community works together, and we're always open, everybody, we welcome open arms. So next slide. And the scale-ups, I mentioned that Global Connect, that was the San Francisco raising investment Silicon Valley. To bring that programme alive a little bit, very much it's VCs out there, founders who have had exits. Maybe they've raised up to Series C, Series D, and then they've had an exit. And they share their experience of what it was like for them, what mistakes they made, what did they learn, what works well. And the VCs on that programme are not there to be getting investment and test you. They're there to help you learn, to progress. And it's completely different from raising in Europe, as some of you may already know that. The demo directory, as I say, is that platform is for the as I say, when you're already investor ready and you want to meet extra investors. So, next slide, please. We can next slide. I think the reason this has been split up like that, we appreciate there's a different audience. There's a mixture of the audience, so some slides will be relevant to some, and that's how I'm sending it out as a PDF as well. So for instance, where you see the blue lines, they're all hyperlinks that you can say, oh, well, that bit interests me, I want to know more. We'll let you, once at home or back at your office, you can click on those relevant links for you, okay? The corporates, that's the way, as I say, for all our startups and scale-ups in our community, we need the corporates as well to, potentially they could be the ones that are, validating the business. They could do paid pilots, for instance, and therefore we run programs specifically to where we get corporates in the same room as startups over like a 10-month period. We do things like, as I said, we've done previously agri-tech. We've got a sustainability one that's on the go just now. We've had Energy Bridge, which we launched up in Aberdeen just last month. So there we go. So there's a various ones there. Next slide. And as I say, obviously we work with Scottish Government, UK Government. Obviously we got the grant from the UK Government. Next slide. So what I wanted to do here was really just, before I close off, I wanted to just bring alive two little stories for you, and it maybe brings alive the founder journey. So I've got one business that I've been working with, and she originally applied for one of our competitions, and it was through Accelerate Her, and it was a female founder based in Edinburgh, and she'd applied for a clean award, and actually she won first prize. So that was a good number of years ago. Then my colleague in Edinburgh was giving her some mentoring, get a little bit of support, checking in on the support. On the back of that, she then joined the Carbon 13 Carbon 13 programme, which is all about the impact they're going to make from a reduction in carbon. And she actually got investment from Carbon 13. While this was all going on, now it's not saying we can't take credit for everything that goes on. Very much at Eagle Labs, we do little bits. We maybe open a door or we'll introduce something, but it's always the founders, that it's the team that make it all happen. So I can't take the credit for all this. But what she's got now is she's got a contract with Glasgow Council, and her robotic arm that uses AI sifts through all the rubbish and picks out all the plastic. As we know, in Glasgow here in Scotland, there's a lot of tenements. There's a lot, you think of the bins that are around the city. Some people are just throwing everything in the one bin, or maybe there only is one bin. So this robotic arm is pulling out the plastic. So there's a little example of one example. Another one, CCL International. Bina Sharman, she's based up in Aberdeen. She's actually just been nominated as a finalist for our Climate UK Entrepreneurial Award, and she's on a huge investment journey. Now, she already had one big round, and from some connections that we were able to offer, she's got a paid pilot with Unilever. So it's shown that sometimes, we can open some doors, and obviously it's up to yourselves to make the magic happen. I'm sure you do. I will close at this point, but feel free to ask any questions at the end, and also or reach out. And also, I'd always say no question's a silly question, because whatever it is, I'll have had to learn that answer as well. So please don't be shy, and everybody's welcome. I'm wishing you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. I think the important thing about innovation is that collaboration, especially with other innovation actors, is really important. And we're really pleased to be able to work with you guys here at Barclays Eagle Labs. And I think it's these sorts of symbiotic relationships, I think, really elevate everything that everyone's doing. And also another point I wanted to make, and Patricia and I discussed this earlier, is that some of these programs that Patricia talked about are relevant to European partners. I'm aware that we're speaking to a European audience as well. And in fact, you will find similar activities happening in your own countries as well. So we encourage you to seek these out. That said, I think some people would probably want to hear about the money. And so without any further ado, I'm going to spend about 10-15 minutes talking about the Open Innovation Factory. Now, this is an activity that we've been running with the EIT Digital for a long time. Morgan mentioned the hundreds of organizations that were supported. These have come, most of them have come directly from the Open Innovation Factory. Now, we run the Open Innovation Factory twice a year. At the bottom of the title slide, you'll see that there's documentation. So I will attempt to give you tips and tricks and information about the Open Innovation Factory, but please refer to the documentation online where all the terms and conditions are spelled out. With that, can we pass to the next slide, please, Tessa? And here's the Mentimeter. If you haven't already done it, everyone in this room has done it, but online, wanted to make sure, especially if you're a late joiner, if you could just take a second to take a picture of that, and then you can put your questions online as you go. I think we're good, Tessa. Next slide. Thank you very much. Okay, so the Open Innovation Factory in a nutshell, up to 400,000 euros of EIT funding. So this comes from, I always forget the name, it's not Channel 3, Cluster 3, from Horizon Europe to accelerate commercialization of established digital deep tech ventures. And this fund that we're talking about at the moment is the second fund of the year, and this is to accelerate ventures starting on the 1st of January 2025. Next slide, please. Okay, so before I do that, and sometimes I do this the other way around, I wanted to really quickly talk about 4 case studies, and I'll spend no more than a minute on each one, of previous successful applicants. 2 from Scotland, then I've got 1 from Ireland, and then 1 from Germany. So the first one is Sense City. You might have come across them before. They actually came out of Edinburgh University. They have partnered with Historic Scotland. They've been successful in lots of R&D funding before they came to EIT Digital. What I'm going to go on to mention is in order to apply for the funding, you also need to partner with another European, another organization, another European country. So they collaborated with the University of Innsbruck for this particular application. And the overall project fund for the 6-month activity that they took part in was 443,000 euros. Now, one thing that's important to note, and the next one is the same situation, they applied twice. Now, you don't have to apply twice, but they applied first time, they didn't meet the cut, they got strong feedback, and then they applied the second time round and they were successful. And this activity ran last year, so this is a really recent one. If you go to some Historic Scotland sites, European online attendees, if you're coming to Scotland on a holiday, you will see these devices out in historic sites in Scotland. And essentially, when you look in there, it will show you an augmented reality view of what things may have looked like in the past. Next slide, please. The next one is Port F. So this is a digital finance organization, and they ran their project the first half of 2024, actually. So they applied in 2023. They were an existing company. They already have some customers. They have good business-to-business contacts. But what they were doing is they were adding a new part to their startup, which is around about an ESG feature, which is about carbon tracking, etc. So they made a very strong application. They got round. They won the funding this time again, second time running. They partnered with Vincent Masons from the UK, but also a Portuguese and a Cypriot company who were able to support the commercialization of what it is they were doing. They're not currently looking for new investment, and this activity was around about the 600,000 mark. Next slide, please. So that's with 2 Scottish ones. Next, we have an Irish one, which is Joy Technology, and this was from the second half of 2022, so right in the middle of the COVID time. And this is technology that's to support the early diagnosis of endometriosis using personal devices rather than going through the doctor route. It was an all-female led application. They had a really strong scientific group with all the features they needed to run a successful commercialization activity, and they partnered with a Finnish company who were technology partners for their application. They're still going very successfully, and that one was 600,000 euros, and that was in the digital well-being area. And the final slide is a German one. Oh, sorry, my apologies, an Austrian one. My bad. Apologies, everyone online. Thinkers.ai, they are quite a remarkable company, actually. Lots of extremely clever people there using their intelligence and AI machine learning to tackle difficult business problems. They actually made a really strong application, and their activity ran in the second half of 2023, was highly successful. They're going from strength to strength at the moment. They partnered with a French channel to market partner called Paris Europlace, who actually do a lot of collaborations with EIT Digital, and a UI partner in Italy. And so this was actually worth even more, 739,000 euros. So that's just to give you a bit of an idea. These are all, hopefully you got a bit of flavor. They're really strong companies. This is not a startup. This is not a fund for someone who's just starting out. These are organizations that really are on the cusp of commercialization or have already commercialized. Next slide, please, Tessa. Okay, so getting into the criteria of the Open Innovation Factory. So first of all, your innovation and your company has to sit within one of our strategic focus areas. These are derived from our innovation strategy, and they haven't really changed for a long time. So you have to sit within cities, industry, wellbeing, tech, or finance. But in actuality, that covers most things. There's some technologies that might sit a little bit on the edge that we've dealt with in the past that are maybe quite hardware based, robotics, for example. But as long as there's a strong digital tech component within that, then it should still fit within the program. If you're unsure at all, please just ask us and we'll let you know. And also, it's important to say that we're looking for technologies, particularly which you would imagine quick, really buzz ones around about AI, cybersecurity, and/or quantum. So these ones are they're not more likely to be successful, but they will be noticed when they arrive. But if you're not in that kind of area, don't worry about it as long as you're within one of these 5 digital focus areas or strategic focus areas. Next slide, please, Tessa. So I briefly mentioned looking at these 4 examples. What we've got here, the title is Highly Preferred Venture Attributes. But really what I think this is based on all of the applications we've seen in the past, the ones that have been most likely to be successful all share some common traits. One of them is that they will tend to already have established business-to-business or B2C customers. So it doesn't have to be a lot, but there's some evidence that somebody wants to buy what you have, then this is seen as a positive attribute for the program. The second is private investor involvement. This doesn't mean that because obviously you're here for funding. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have lots of investor, but certainly a track record of some funding, be it yourself or ideally some other organizations, put some money in to get you to where you are at the moment. And if you're in the early stages of, and I'll come onto this in a bit more detail, of receiving new funding, then that's seen as a benefit as well, because if somebody else is wanting to put money behind your company, then that's a positive. And I said post-revenue, once again, it doesn't have to, that's related to the first one, I suppose. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you are hopefully already making sales. So you've just passed that kind of threshold of making sales. Next up. Thank you very much. I also mentioned that the application is to be consortium based. In the past, excuse me, I've had whooping cough or suspected whooping cough for a few weeks, so I'm just getting over it. But I'm not contagious, so there you go. So this is a consortium-based application. In the past, these were lots of partners that we would involve in an application. Now it's really just 2. Maybe you saw one example that had 3. Ideally, it's you and another organization in another European country that's doing something that you would need to do anyway for commercialization. So perhaps it's could be a university that's going to just verify your algorithm, or maybe it's going to be a website developer. It's not super important what the other partner is going to do, as long as it is something that's going to contribute towards it's going to take you another step along the way. So if you're in the UK, for example, you'd be looking for someone else outside Europe, and sorry, within the rest of Europe. And if you're in Europe, it just has to be a different country. The UK is entirely relevant, though. We're associated with Horizon Europe, so we do encourage you, if you're a European-based startup looking to apply here, it's perfectly fine to join up with the UK, and I would say particularly Scottish companies. Next slide, please. Right, so the next point I wanted to make is that this is a co-funding model, so it's not 100%, well, it is 100% funded, but you need to come up with 50% co-funding. And this is where, for example, if you've got a co-investor already, or if you have funds that are already associated with the project, essentially it looks more like match funding. So EIT Digital will provide up to 50% of the amount of money that you need to run your activity. So this is a 6-month activity in commercialization. So this is things like marketing, polishing the product, getting out the door. And you have to come up with the other 50% of that funding. Part of that can be non-financial, so it's sweat equity, that kind of stuff. And the other part of it can be co-funding. It could be one or either, or ideally a mix, or it can be a mix. Certainly in recent years, applications that are fully funded with the other 50% have been more successful. But it's all taken as a whole against the what it is, the innovation, the way that the application's been written, and what you plan to do in that 6-month activity period. Oh, next slide, please. And there's also an equity piece. So this is supporting EIT Digital's sustainability. So help EIT Digital to carry on once public funding starts to run out. We've been doing this for several years now, but ultimately we are asking you as an organization to offer a certain amount of equity in your company in return for the funding. And it has to be now between a minimum of 5.5% and a maximum of 12%. So I always say it really depends on where your company is. For some organizations, this is going to make complete sense. It's entirely commensurate or even good value versus getting your funding from elsewhere. For other organizations that are maybe worth more, it might not make sense. You really have to decide amongst yourselves what makes sense. We are not going to prescribe the amount for you. It's for you to offer. But if you've had, say, a price point, a valuation of the company, or if you've had other funding into the company, then you'll be able to figure out probably what would be a reasonable amount to offer in return for the funding. And next slide, please. And I mentioned prior investor involvement. So without spending too much on this, because I think it's really fairly obvious what private investor involvement is. As I say, it's really helpful for an application if you have other investors involved. The EIT Digital can essentially double the money if you want to look upon that way. But if you have, so the simplest one is a investor that's invested recently or in the past to the company, and all they have to do is provide a letter that confirms that the investment and the quantum of it, and that goes in as part of your application. The next category is planned investment. So if you're in serious discussions with a future investor, then include that with the proposal as well, because that really strengthens the application. And then the final one is co-investment, which is a more complex one. And this is about putting shares aside for an investment round that will maybe not actually crystallize or complete until later on in 2025. Next slide, please. Okay, 1 second. All right, so I think we've covered most of this, but just to quickly do it. So I don't think we've mentioned before, so this is for early stage ventures. So if your organization has been incorporated before the 1st of January 2020, then you're not eligible for this funding. So it has to be after the 1st of January 2020. You have to have at least 2 partners, which we've mentioned. It has to have incorporated in a separate, you must be incorporated in an EU member state or an associated country. The proposal has asked for a maximum of 400k. There's a 50% co-funding model. The venture shouldn't be a subsidiary, it should be the company essentially that's making the application. And you need to have outright ownership of a substantial majority of the IP. Sorry, getting there. Oh, sorry, next slide, please. So I wanted to quickly mention the key benefits of, key benefits of working with the EIT. I don't know if that's going to make a difference, but we'll try. Thanks. Key benefits of the EIT, the Open Innovation Factory. So first of all, working with EIT Digital, hopefully you got from Morgan's presentation that you've got, it's a large, venerable, mature, respected organization within Europe. So you're getting access to the customers, you're getting channels to market, technologies and talent. Morgan mentioned we've got access to 35,000 innovation actors across Europe, lots of universities, channels to market, etc. So you'll get that as part of once you're within working with EIT Digital. The funding itself is specifically targeted to that commercialization phase. It's only 6 months activity. Just from start to finish, the money has to be spent in that 6-month window. We will support you through the application process as in the teams that are within your country region. We have people across Europe, so we would support you firsthand, face-to-face with the application and during the execution phase and beyond, in fact. As I said, EIT Digital is a very highly respected stamp for your organisation. So to get EIT Digital funding, I think will help you in the future when you're looking for other funding. One of the programs that Morgan showed you but didn't talk about is the EIT Digital Speedmaster. And so this is executive training that EIT Digital is now providing. And that's a premium offer of EIT Digital, costs money, but it's free for organisations that are on the Open Innovation Factory track. Next slide, I think one of the last slides. All right, so the cut-off, the timetable for the Open Innovation Factory. So this is the second one this year. We've already run one earlier on this year. So applications have to be in on the 21st of October. So it's around about 6 weeks from now. Then the selection period is really fast compared to, say, Innovate UK or other similar funds. So by the 5th of December, you'll know if you've been successful, and your project will then start on the 1st of January. So there's no mucking around. Application, find out, start the project, and it will complete on the 30th of June 2025. All these slides will be circulated after the event by email, by the way. So if you've missed anything, don't worry about it. Thank you, Tessa. If you haven't already, and we will send this out to you anyway, what we recommend for the first thing, if you're interested in this program, first thing you do is just fill in a really short proposal preview form. And this comes directly to us in the West Region team. So the people you see in this room and a couple of others. We will then do a quick check, make sure you meet the criteria, get back to you with some feedback, and then we will invite you to the next one in this series, which is essentially a proposal preview workshop, where we will help you to understand the proposal form, which can be a bit complex and a bit scary if you've never seen it before. It's actually not very long. It's relatively straightforward to fill in, but there's some quirks to it. So we will help you through that process. Establish if you need to find partners. So for example, do we need to find you a European partner for your application? So the first step on that process is to fill in this proposal form. Ideally, if you could do that by next Monday, that would be helpful as we're starting to build up the audience. It takes you probably 3 minutes to fill in that proposal. I see Natalia's smiling, but it probably takes you 3 minutes to fill in the proposal preview form. Next slide, please. Which may be the last. It is the last. So thank you for bearing with me with my tickly throat. I'm going to now pass to Ben. So as I mentioned, we were talking about, this is the Open Innovation Factory. It's seed or pre-seed funding. Ben's going to talk about the next stage, which is around about the Series A funding and scaling your innovation.
Super. Thanks, Martin. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Ben McClure. I'm based in London, and I'm part of a pan-European venture finance team. We're called Growth Services or Access to Market. And our job is to help really promising digital tech ventures raise their Series A and Series B stage financings. This is a really important stage in a company's life journey. The time when you have to go out to professional venture capital investors and try and convince them to part with their money, the money that they're managing for other people. It's a it's never easy. It's never quick. But we like to think that we can make that make it smoother, more efficient, drawing on our expertise and experience in venture capital fundraising. There's a lot at stake for startups and scale-ups at this stage. As I said, it's never easy. It's never quick, and to be honest, it's getting more difficult these days. So, in our view, it's important that you get some help. And we have a team that is experts in the world of VC, navigating the whole process, and we're here to really help to make that venture capital fundraising experience better and more successful for scale-ups all across Europe. Next slide, please. Oh, another one of the QRs. So if you take a moment and take a snapshot of that, and that'll take you to a little questionnaire. If you're looking to raise money, you can fill that in, and I'll be able to contact you through that.
No, that's the Q&A.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's Q&A. Sorry, guys. Okay. Next slide, please, Tessa. Okay, so we have we're an international venture capital fundraising team. There are 5 of us across Europe, and we all have got lots and lots of experience in the world of corporate finance, tech fundraising, venture capital. We're in all the major business centers in Europe, and we make it our job to get to know the venture capital investors all across Europe. We have deep knowledge, genuinely deep knowledge of corporate finance and fundraising. We focus on fundraisings of between 3 to 25 million plus euros or pounds. So, and that really is what we would call Series A, Series B stage financing. Sometimes we do pre-Series A. Sometimes at seed stage, the fundraisings are a bit bigger, and we from time to time we help companies at that stage as well. We have genuinely the best direct network to venture capital investors across Europe. As I said, we make it our job to get to know the investors, understand their tastes and preferences, so that we can bring to the table the right investors for the companies that we're supporting. We take pride in the high efficiency and the structured fundraising advice and support that we offer. We understand the process of raising money, and we try and do our best to make it as efficient as possible for the founders that we're supporting. And we're really motivated. We've all been in this business for 20 plus years. We've all got gray hair, and we love what we do, and we're really motivated to help companies succeed and get to the next stage of the growth of their businesses. Next slide, please. So we're very proud of our success track record. Here's some of the companies that we've raised money for. As you can see, they're from all over Europe, and as you can see, they're roughly in the range of 5 to 20 million. We're working on a few bigger ones at the moment, but they're all across Europe, and they're investments from very prestigious European, UK, and North American, and even Asian venture capital investors that we've been able to bring to the table for these companies. And I think one of the important things to remember is, because we're international, we're able to bring investors from other countries for the founders, investors that aren't always available for them. But through our network, we're able to find smart investors that understand the value of their businesses, that they may have expertise in the particular business area, and if we don't know them, we can find them and connect the companies that we're supporting and try and get you the right investors. Next slide, please. So some of the recent deals, I'll just go through a few of them. Gentis is a privacy software maker based in Austria. Super software, world class. and we helped them raise 11 million euros in a Series A round. And I think, again, what's interesting about this is that it was an Austrian company, but the investors were all from outside of Austria. So there was Bright Pixel from Portugal, one of Europe's premier SaaS software investors. There were 3TS Capital Partners from Finland. Again, another software investor that very, very smart. And then there was Pragmatech Ventures from London. Next slide, please. Mitiga Solution, this one, again, we're very proud of. A 13 million euro raise for a Spanish company. Mitiga has world-class predictive software for climate change risk. So they sell to a lot of insurance companies, as you can imagine, and to large enterprises that really need to understand climate change risk. And we're able to bring investors, again, from outside of Europe. So there was Microsoft Climate Fund. There was Nationwide Ventures, which is a specialist insurance-focused corporate investor. Kibo Ventures and Crias Impacto and Faber, and they were from Spain and Portugal, which kind of makes sense. But it was a nice mix of investors for that company. Next slide, please. WSense is an Italian company. This is really interesting. They've got world-class Wi-Fi undersea communications technology. So they're allowing offshore oil companies to communicate with subs using Wi-Fi and wireless technology under the water. It's amazing stuff. And we helped them to raise 9 million euros. Again, international contingent of investors that we brought in from France and from Norway, which was really interesting because there's a big interest in undersea technology, offshore oil production, etc. So that was a really nice one. And then I think there's one more. Next slide, please. And Sentineo. This is a Slovakian company. Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe companies, there aren't very many venture capitals investors in Eastern Europe, but this particular company had great smart waste management platform that they were deploying in Eastern Europe. They were getting some traction in Western Europe, and they were funded through the European Innovation Council that you guys may be aware of. So that's public money through Horizon Europe. And then they had a Slovakian local venture capital fund that we brought in. And then this was an interesting one. We managed to get an investor from Taiwan, and Taiwania Capital is probably the leading waste management investor in the whole world that we brought into this deal. So this deal is going to be game changing for Sentineo. They're currently, last year they were an East European company. Now they're going to become a global company through the partnerships and the investments that we brought in through this deal. So anyway, this gives you a little taste of the kind of work we've been doing. Next slide, please. So what's happening in the world of venture capital? You might have seen a slide like this. So good. This is the number of deals that are being done in Europe. It's kind of fallen off in the last few years. So there's less deals are being done. That's being said, there's still a lot of money in the market. So what is happening? Venture capital investors, they're sitting on big pots of money, but they've slowed down the amount of deals they're doing. Basically, they're just not sure what's going to be happening over the next 5 to 10 years in the global economy. They're a little bit nervous about higher interest rates, although we're starting to see them come down, which is good news. But the last couple of years, there's been a kind of a profound shift from what were probably the peak years ever in venture capital, 2020, 2021. Incredible numbers back then, and it's now coming back to what I would argue is more normal deal activity. So if people are saying, oh, things are really tough in the venture capital market, they are definitely tougher than they were 2 years ago. But if you look at it over a longer time frame, it's actually quite normal. This is the way things are normally done. So I think there was a bit of a bubble going on 2 years ago, and we're kind of going back to a reset where It's more normal activity in the venture capital marketplace. That being said, the investors are certainly pickier. They're taking much longer to assess opportunities than they did, say, 2 or 3 years ago. They're spending more time doing due diligence, and this makes it a bit of a challenge for founders that are looking to raise venture capital. It's not as easy as it was 2 or 3 years ago, but there is money in the marketplace. Investors are investing in good opportunities. So the trick is to really, you need to cut through all the noise. There are thousands of other startups trying to raise money. So your job as a founder, if you're trying to raise venture capital, is you need to cut through all that competitive noise and show the investor that you've got something that's fantastic and it's worth investing in. So don't let this kind of chart put you off. We're going back to normal. It's always been hard to raise venture capital. It's always taken time. But again, our job is to help the companies get through this stage in their careers of their companies. And there's some things to think about if you're contemplating raising venture capital, or if you are at the moment. There's things to think about. So we've got some sort of key ingredients for getting a venture capital fundraising right. Next slide, please. So I call this is Ben, or the EIT Digital Growth Services formula for fundraising success. The first thing is you need to have an investment proposition that's great, super clear, super compelling, and I'll go into each of these. You need to be talking to the right investors. There are literally thousands of investors here in the UK, thousands more in Europe, many thousands more in North America. You need to be talking to the right ones, the ones that can appreciate what you're doing, understand what you're doing, and importantly, see value in what you're doing. And then thirdly, and this is something that a lot of founders don't think about, it's not enough just to have a proposition and be talking to the right investors. It's actually, there's a campaign that goes into raising money. It's like selling a product. It's a sales and marketing campaign. And it's not of just to talk to 1 or 2 investors. You need to talk to multiple investors. And it's a bit of a volume game. You need to talk to a lot, because most of them will probably say no. So in order to get to the yeses, you need to be talking to quite a few different investors. And that means you need to run a campaign to do that. And it needs to be structured and efficient. Otherwise, it can take much longer than you can tolerate. And at the same time, while you're doing all this, you need to keep growing your business, because that's your job as a CEO or a founder of a company. You need to be bringing in customers, managing the business, and keeping it growing all at the same time. So next slide, please. So what's a compelling proposition? It's a proposition that hits the mark with investors. In the experience of everyone in our team, whenever you go out to investors, you have to get the right message across immediately. You rarely get a second chance. Investors are looking at hundreds of deals every week, every month. They're looking at lots, trust me. You need to get their attention immediately. You have to get their interest. Otherwise, they say, no, thank you. I'm going to look at some of these other ones. It's very easy for them to just say, no, thanks. I've got plenty of other ones to look at. So the proposition has to be great. We spend a lot of time with the companies that we're supporting working on the propositions. So we look at, we need to show that there's a big market opportunity for the company that they're addressing. We need to talk about why the team that's building the business and growing the business is the right one. We need to show the right model metrics for the investors. They love numbers, they love metrics. We need to get all this information across, and it has to be the right kind of metrics for the kinds of investors that we're talking to. Talk about customer traction and pipeline, sales pipeline. Again, these are the sorts of things that investors want to know about. Increasingly, the investors want to know, when is the business going to be profitable? 3 years ago, there was less emphasis on that. But now that things are, they're not quite sure how things are going to be going over the next 5-10 years, they're thinking, we really need to think about, when is this business going to be profitable? So we need to be marking out a timeline to profitability. The amount of money that you're asking for and the valuation of the business have to be sensible. and meet the expectations of investors. And that needs to be surmised before you even start talking to them. And I think this is one of the things we're actually very good at. We have a good gauge on valuations and what an acceptable ask is. And then your proposition has to fit those particular funds' strategies, their investment theses. So it has to match with the investors that you want to be talking to. And we spend time with the companies to get these things right. And I think this is one of the keys to the success that we've had is getting the proposition right. Next slide, please. As I said, there's those four formulas for success. The second was you need to be talking to the right investors. So I put an iceberg on here because as I see it, the venture capital market is like an iceberg. You'll probably recognize some of those names at the top. And those are the well-known venture capital funds that people might have heard of, that, you know, they make their name known in the marketplace. And there are a lot of them, but there are way more lurking underneath the surface that you probably have never heard of. They keep a low profile. They typically do their own scouting. They don't really make a name for themselves, largely because they don't want a whole lot of inflow because it gets complicated and noisy, and they do their own scouting. We do our best to get to know these investors. They get to know us. They trust us as a source of really high quality deal flow. So they tend to like to talk to us. They tend to like to see the opportunities that we're presenting to them. And there are a lot of them. This is just a few of them. I wish I could draw a massive map with all the companies, all the venture capital funds, but it would take me hours. So I didn't bother. But the message here is there are a lot of investors. Some of them you may have heard of and you want to contact. Try. Even the ones you've heard of, they can be hard to get through to because they're trying to sift through all kinds of different deals. We know those well-known investors, and again, they trust as a source of deal flow. So there's a high probability of getting through them when you're working for us, because we're seen as a trusted partner in the venture capital marketplace. But talking to the right investors is really important. If you're talking to the wrong ones, it's a waste of time, and you don't have time. You need to be spending your time building and growing your business and achieving your goals. So that's the takeaway here. Third one, next slide, please. Again, a structured fundraising is really, really important. This is a kind of a typical timeline for a venture capital fundraise. So we spend up to a month getting the companies ready for fundraising. We work on their fundraising strategy, the documentation, getting the messaging right, and identifying the right investors in the marketplace. And then it's our job is to go out to market, running a professional sales campaign, essentially, raising the profile of the business in the venture capital community, setting up the meetings with the investors. If we don't hear from them, we chase them. We make sure that there's follow-up information that's going to the investors to keep them interested. It's not enough to just send some information and say, oh, you know what, the investor's going to love us now. We need to keep feeding them information and show them how the business is growing and progressing, because that's what they're looking for. They want to know that you're growing. And that's where it's so important that you're concentrating on bringing in customers. And ideally, within 2-3 months, we should be getting some term sheets if we've done our job well. And this is what happens with our successful fundraising. Within 2 or 3 months, we're getting term sheets from investors, and usually more than 1 or 2. So we're able to create a competitive environment, and really ideally get good deals for the companies that we're supporting. Now, getting a term sheet is not the end of the process. The investors now, they say, okay, we think we know what you're worth. We think we have an idea that you've got the right ask and what the valuation is. Now we're going to watch you. And this is called the due diligence period. 3 years ago, due diligence was 8 weeks. Now it's 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And what they're doing is they're saying, okay, we like this company. We've issued them a term sheet. Now we're going to see what they can do. So that's when you have to keep growing the business through this due diligence period. And it's a period of negotiation, and it's really quite painful. But the due diligence is getting longer and longer and longer these days because the investors are getting pickier, and they've got more companies to select from. But if all goes well and due diligence goes well, then there's the final transaction, and that can take a month or two to negotiate the final terms. But it's a good 12 months. So if you're looking to raise venture capital, you really need to be budgeting that kind of timeline to be raising 5 million plus in venture capital. And we understand this process. You know, we're here to basically hold your hand through the whole thing. We don't negotiate on your behalf, but we can certainly help with the negotiations and advise on, you know, what kind of red flags come out of documents. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that, I didn't put the fourth one in, and I should have, but basically the fourth one was keep growing the business. Founders and CEOs, your priority is building businesses and build it. What is building a business? It's something that you know, you've got a product that customers like, they want to pay for, they want to buy more of it, or there are more customers that want to buy, but pay for it and buy it. So building up customers, growing the business, and the more successful you are at that, the more likely you're going to be able to raise venture capital. But the takeaway is venture capital is raising money is actually really hard, and the stakes are high for founders. You know, it can be a critical stage in the company's, you know, life, and we're here to help with this complicated, difficult process. But we think we have a really good track record of success, and we think we can really help you do it. So hopefully that was helpful. Yeah. Great.
Thank you, Ben. And Ben, that's your QR code there you were talking about. If you want to speak to Ben, get any more information, just click that link. This will be shared after the event as well, so don't worry about that in an email. Next slide, please, Tess. So we haven't got long. We have gone way over our time, but we've got a few minutes to do some of the talk questions. Do you guys want to jump in the hot seat? And
do you want to do next steps in case people are leaving?
Okay, well, what I'll do is we'll do next steps and then I'll come back. Tessa, could you just go to the next slide? Ben, do you mind ducking down? Right. So a couple of QR codes there so if you're interested to hear more information about the Open Innovation Factory, that is the link to the proposal preview form that we talked about on the left or the right, I guess, depending on how you're looking at it. And then the Access to Finance one will take you to a quick form to leave information for Ben. Next slide, please. 2 events that we've got coming up. The first one is a pan-European large-scale Open Innovation Factory information session. So this is really the kickoff of the formal Open Innovation Factory information session. So it's not as interactive and as intimate as the one that we have here. But if you want to get all of this information again from a different angle, please join that session on the 9th September. And we also have another event, just another one that's happening in September, about steps to smart manufacturing for SMEs, if that's your bag. Next slide, please. We have, if you want to quickly take a photograph of that, but as I say, this will be circulated. We are split up regionally. So this is the West Region team. We've got DACH, we've got France, Ireland, UK and Benelux, which is Tessa and myself in Scotland. And then we've got Ben for Access to Finance. Please feel free to email us directly. We will help you. And the next one, which I think is the final one, is a thank you. Okay, so we're going to then backtrack to Q&A. We understand that in Europe particularly, it's a little bit late or later than us. So please feel free to drop off at past. If you're in this room physically, we have food, or we should have food. So we are actually going to be fine, I think. So we'll go through the top Q&As very quickly. Go on.
For 10 minutes on Q&A.
10 minutes. No digital snacks, sorry.
super fast.
Okay, machine gun to
Ready.
you. All right. First one, Morgan. What are the eligibility criteria, e.g. max company age and revenue ranges for the different programs?
Okay, so for the Open Innovation Factory, the age criteria is 3 years. The company should have been incorporated.
1st of January 2020.
Yeah, 1st of January 2020 or later. It's based upon incorporation date. For access to finance, there is no age criteria. It's just based upon the financial criteria, which are in the slide deck. The age doesn't matter.
We will be sharing the presentation deck, yes. Wasn't this workshop meant to target pre-seed and seed startups? Venture capital is not the best solution for that stage.
Yeah, so it's the factory. It's Open Innovation Factory, which is pre-seed and seed. And then venture capital is for scale-ups, and that's from 3 million euros in funding and up to 25 million.
How and in what ways can universities participate / be part of EIT?
So two different ways. If the university has a spin out and they're looking for funding for the spin out, then the Open Innovation Factory can be relevant. In those cases, if the university is interested in participating with us as an education provider for higher education programs, then just talk to us. It's the same names that were on that contact slide that Martin just showed.
Does any of the information being presented today also apply to startups from the rest of the UK?
All of the UK.
Yeah,
yeah, all of the UK.
We're all fine. Yeah. When considering funding, should the first point of contact be EIT Digital or Horizon and Digital Europe?
EIT Digital.
Does a substantial Innovate UK funding count as private funding?
Yes, it does. It's very valuable. It's obviously not private funding, technically speaking, but it's just as good because it's a strong validation of the product and the company and the team. So we take that just as seriously.
Regarding the EIT Open Innovation Factory, can you clarify if the funding comes upfront or is it a cost reimbursement model as is traditional in Horizon Europe projects?
It's a mix actually. So you get 2 tranches of pre-financing. The first is 10%. The second, I think, is about 30%. 35 probably. So about 45% comes as pre-financing, and then the rest comes with final cost reports. But it comes quite quickly. It's not a very protracted funding schedule. If you want the exact details, it's in the call document, which is online. You can find it there.
Is the 5.5 to 12% stakes, that's for the Open Innovation Factory, pre or post money?
Pre-money.
How do you define seed and Series A in relation to revenue?
So as I said, we don't really look at revenue. For Open Innovation Factory, it's the date of incorporation. We lean towards companies which are post-revenue rather than pre-revenue. It's not a hard criteria, but obviously, generally speaking, we prefer companies that are post-revenue. For access to finance, there isn't a hard revenue criteria there because, as you know, there are so many other attributes and considerations with an early stage company. Some could even be pre-revenue if the technology and the team are really outstanding. So don't go too much on revenue. Just talk to us if you think you've got a good case.
Can you apply for funding and also receive funding from other sources at the same time, or are there restrictions?
No restrictions.
Other fees or equity for your service? Do you take a portion of the investment or funding received? I guess that's both for you and for Ben.
Yes, access to finance.
Oh, can you do the microphone?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, access to finance. Yes, we operate commercially. We ask for fees. There's a base fee component and a success fee component. We think they're reasonable, but it's something we discuss with the companies that that are considering our support. I think the important thing to know is that we're offering a comparable level of service to an investment bank or a boutique investment house, but being nonprofit, we're able to charge lower fees.
Question is, can you put a range on that?
Yeah, the base fee starts at 24,000 euros, and the success fees, it depends on the option that we decide on, but it can be typically it's 2% of funds raised.
One for Morgan. How do you cooperate with other EIT KICs?
We do cooperate. So we have this concept of a cross-kick project. which is where the entity, so the startup usually, is drawing funding from one kick and also from another at the same time. So it works that way. There is another case as well where, together with another kick, we go to pull down primary funding from one of the main European funding frameworks. And then we work together on the delivery of that funding downstream into the marketplace. So it happens in two different ways.
Thank you. Just going very quickly through some, I'm going to jump some, but is being post-revenue a prerequisite for the Innovation Factory?
No.
No, it's not. It's an attribute.
Desirable.
Yeah, a desirable attribute. Is there a company age limit? Yes, after 1st of January 2020. Do you have to be a member of EIT to apply for the funding? No, you don't. But if you are successful and you do receive the funding, you would have to become an EIT digital partner. Regarding the IP requirements, do we need patents, or are they strongly preferred? Morgan?
They're preferred. I wouldn't say strongly preferred, but it is a positive if you have patents on your technology. I'd say, broadly speaking, about 35% of the cases that get approved for funding have some kind of patent on the technology. So it's not a prerequisite.
Just thought there's some complex questions here. I'm just trying to jump to we incorporated a company in October 29, but couldn't start because of COVID and didn't start until 2021. Are we ineligible? I'm afraid yes, you would be.
So you'd have to reincorporate.
Yeah, we'd have to reincorporate, and that's now. And that's it. There's a few others there, and none of them I'm deliberately trying to avoid. It's just really for time. We'll have a look through, and if there's anything that we think should be shared with everyone, we will add them in an email afterwards. I think actually we've more or less made it a few minutes over.
There was one question about the material. So you will receive a PDF attachment with this stuff today, probably tomorrow now. And you'll also receive a recording, this recording as well, early next week. So you'll be able to go through everything again. And the Open Innovation Factory documents are online as well. You saw the link earlier. And if you want all of the intricate detail, that's the best place to go, or speak to us. If you're interested, the most important thing is just to do that quick proposal preview form. It can take 3 minutes, but it's no more than 5 minutes. It's very painless. It's not part of your application at all. It's just to start a discussion with us. We're on your side. We want you to be successful. We're not the police. We're just trying to tease out the best attributes of your organization and your team to give you the best possible chance of success.
And with that, thank you very much, Eagle Labs, for supporting us. Thank you, everyone who's joined online, and most of all, thanks for everyone who's joined physically. There is definitely some food. I can see it just around the corner. So until next time, thank you very much.